The state of Connecticut has a statute, 830G, that requires at least 10% of a town or city's housing stock to be considered quote-unquote affordable. If a town in Connecticut does not meet this standard, as most do not, a developer looking to build high-density housing that gets denied by the town's zoning and planning commission can appeal to the state and essentially override the local town's decision. This battle has taken place and is taking place across Connecticut, including in Simsbury, where the local planning commission recently denied a proposal for a high-density affordable housing subdivision. The developer is appealing the decision, with the state citing the 830G statute. There are two bills proposed in the state legislature this year, House Bill 6880 and House Bill 7057, that, according to supporters of affordable housing who are opposing these bills, would weaken the 830G statute. Without getting into all of the details of the proposed legislation, the bills would seemingly make it harder for developers to override local planning and zoning commissions using the 830G statute. By examining the testimony of the groups that oppose this legislation, we can learn a lot about the motivations behind the push for affordable housing. One group's testimony that I found particularly interesting was that of the Open Communities Alliance, which is, quote, a nonprofit civil rights organization that focuses on ensuring that low-income families of color have access to the wealth of opportunities in our state through a balanced approach to affordable housing creation, end quote. In the testimony of Erin Boggs, executive director of Open Communities Alliance, she says that municipal zoning has, quote, exclusionary roots meant to keep non-whites out of white neighborhoods. Boggs says that, quote, we as a state and a country still struggle with the historical legacy of that kind of racist sentiment, end quote. Therefore supports the state using 830G to override a town or city's decision on development. From the testimony, quote, it is the concern of many communities that CGS Section 830G takes away local control over zoning. It does, when reasonable, affordable housing development proposals are rejected by towns that do not have sufficient levels of affordable units. There is a way to address this. Proactively work to generate suitable housing within your town to reach a moratorium or surpass the 10% threshold, end quote. In other words, communities can make their own decisions as long as they do what they are told by people not in the community. The Open Communities Alliance not only lobbies for changes in legislation, but organizes coalitions, produces research to support their policies, engages in public outreach, and more. One example of their work to subvert local sovereignty can be seen in a case in Westport last year where a developer, Richard K. Friedman, submitted a proposal for a 48-unit, 30% affordable housing project, but was denied by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Friedman, citing the 830G statute, said he will file a lawsuit against the town because it has a pattern of denying affordable housing. In his proposal, Friedman submitted a letter from the Open Communities Alliance supporting the development using what seems to be veiled legal threats and dubious racial statistics. One part of the letter states, quote, Westport is a high-opportunity area, meaning that it is thriving with high-performing schools, access to jobs, and safe neighborhoods. Unfortunately, Westport does not reflect the racial, ethnic, or economic demographics of its geographic region or state as a whole, end quote, and goes on to say that Westport lacks people of color and single parents, proportionately speaking. To an outsider, it may seem that this lack of diversity could possibly be a reason why Westport has high-performing schools, access to jobs, and safe neighborhoods. But anyone capable of making that connection would never dare, as they know it would surely lead to them being derided as a racist, misogynist, or some other form of ad hominem attack. Anyway, I decided to look a little bit further into this Open Communities Alliance, and after seeing who funds the organization, the propagation of racial conflicts and attacks on local sovereignty all made sense. They receive money from the Ford Foundation, an organization that I have previously written about in regards to their push for world government, population control, and other policies that align with United Nations Agenda 21. They also receive money from Open Society Foundations, an organization founded by the infamous billionaire George Soros. In a previous video, I showed how Soros' money was being used to fund other groups in Connecticut causing racial and political conflict. Another organization that submitted testimony against the bills currently in the state legislature regarding Statute 830G is the Regional Plan Association. The Regional Plan Association is another tax-free organization funded by the Ford Foundation, as well as the Rockefeller Foundation and the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, two foundations that I have written extensively on in the past in regards to their subversion of local sovereignty, among other topics. While I do not pretend to understand all of the intricacies involved in this proposed legislation and rarely ever endorse bills, judging strictly by who is against these bills, I would venture to say that these are genuinely good pieces of legislation in the sense that they would increase local decision-making power. Anyway, thank you for listening, watch the related videos, and subscribe to the channel.